Let's talk about some diet dogmas. And once again, please remember the entire book will be coming out relatively soon. And so we start talking about diet dogmas. What we're really talking about is dietary styles that are restrictive in terms of their inclusion and exclusion criteria that follow along the lines of being tenets or dogmatic practices very similar to religions. Some of these would fall in line with what we might think about in terms of fad diets or popular diets. One such type of diet is a diet cleanse or a detox diet. And so we have to think about this. Is it worth the hype, or is it really something I should try to use? Well, let's talk about that.
Warning. The following presentation contains information that might contradict what you have previously heard, or believed to be true, about how the human body works, and contains material that is not suitable for closed-minded individuals. Enjoy!
And so we started thinking about the detox diet or the dietary cleanse is basically based off of a premise that the body is somehow accumulating excessive amounts of toxic elements that we require extra efforts in order to remove. Toxins and substances that come about from the environment through exposure to, say, cigarette smoke, or consuming alcohols, or other types of environmental toxins, things that come about from consuming fast foods, things that come about from consuming ultra-processed foods, things that come about from how we go about cooking things, or the things that are in the pots and pans that we use for cooking, where consumption of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, usually in some sort of blend or in some sort of drink, or going on fasts where we only consume water, or where we consume some sort of hot beverage, such as a tea, that will somehow eliminate these extra toxins that we're accumulating within our body. Or we go about doing things like sweats in saunas in an attempt to eliminate all of these various types of environmental toxins that are somehow accumulating within our body. Well, what's the evidence that we have? What type of scientific proof do we have that shows that the detox diet is something that has value to it? A lot of the hypothesis comes about that the accumulation of metabolic waste and metabolic toxins due to the oxidative stress in our normal metabolism, as well as the environmental toxins that we might accumulate through our body, require us to consume additional nutrients in an attempt to either deoxidize or antioxidize the body or remove the environmental toxins that somehow are accumulating within the body due to what we get exposed to. Well, based off of the evidence, what we know is that there is very limited evidence to support a lot of the propositions that are made by the detox diets or the dietary cleanses. There is limited evidence to support improvement in cardiac functions. However, there is some evidence based off of the means by which some of the detox diets follow that we might have, at least for a temporary point of view, a reduction in atherosclerosis, a reduction in blood pressures, and a reduction in blood-related inflammations due to a reduction in C-reactive protein. Based off of the limits of nutrients being consumed, we will see an increase in lipolysis coming from the adipose tissue, but we will also see a reduction in depositing of lipid-soluble elements. Based off of changes in adipose functions, we might see a change in macrophage activity, which could lead to a reduction in inflammation that we see with the reduction in C-reactive protein. In terms of the liver, there tends to be an increase of clearance rates going through the liver, a change in oxidative disease states, usually referenced within the liver as the fatty acid liver issues, whether it's alcoholic fatty acid or non-alcoholic fatty acid, that tend to go hand in hand with changes in nutrients more than the actual quote-unquote detoxes that are taking place. There is an increase of clearance and an increase of urine volume coming away from the kidneys. This increase of clearance that we see both in the liver as well as in the kidneys tends to go hand in hand with increase of fluid consumption more than the quote-unquote detox events that are taking place. More on that to come. There is no evidence to support an effect taking place within the nervous system, no evidence to support an effect taking place within the musculoskeletal system, and there's no cumulative effect in terms of the evidence that we have for changes in pancreatic functions. For people who have metabolic issues, people who are over fat, Following a detox diet that involves some sort of temporary fasting or a reduction in any of the starchy foods that they would normally be consuming, there is a normalization of insulin and glucagon functions. However, those functions go back to how it was in terms of the diseased state following the elimination of the detox diet. So we have some evidence to support use, but there is a lot more evidence to support not using the detox diet. Even with all of the various packages and programs and incentives that we have out there in terms of what is marketed to us in terms of why we might need a detox or why we might need a detox diet, there is very limited evidence to support the use of the detox diet. And there is more evidence to support that a detox diet is actually harmful to the body more than it is helpful to the body. A lot of this comes about because of the fact that following a detox diet will lead to significant deficiencies and significant risk for malnutrition, particularly in electrolytes, due to overconsumption of fluids and underconsumption of foods. Following the detox diet, there is also an increased risk for overconsumption of the anti-nutrient compounds found within the vegetables that are the major component of the dietary regimen within most detox diets. Along with that, what we have to remember is that we have organs that within our body that are going to be responsible for doing the detoxification of the body, in particular the liver and the kidneys, in terms of removal of metabolic wastes and removal of metabolic toxins, whether those metabolic toxins and metabolic wastes are coming from the body or coming through inhalation or ingestion of materials from the environment into the body. The use of these organs, the use of these metabolic reactions within these organs can get disrupted by the use of the detox diets and the cleanses. Most of the use of the detox diets and the cleanses involve an overconsumption of fluids, which leads to an electrolyte imbalance, which can cause issues for the body, but can also lead to an increased formation of excretion fluids, urine, sweat, etc. This increased excretion of fluids is usually interpreted as increased elimination of metabolic waste and toxins, when it's really just elimination of excess fluid that is being consumed during the detox. Well, thanks for checking this out. Hopefully you got a little insight into detox diets and why you might want to worry about detox diets. We'll get more into it in the book. Make sure you're giving us those 5-star ratings. Make sure that you are subscribed and are liking what's getting put out. It's going to help us out with the metrics. We appreciate all of that. Make sure that you're clicking on that bell to get alerts when we are putting new things out on YouTube as well as on the podcast. Please make sure you're following us on all of the various platforms here on YouTube as well as on the podcast, publications in Substack, and our short clips on Threads and on Instagram.